Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast. I am your host, DylanLasagna, and this is episode number 213 of this icy yet spicy podcast for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. And in this episode, we're still here in the old icebox for another retro review in the theme of summer. And this time around, we're going 10 years forward because this particular summer event has just hit its milestone, its 10-year anniversary milestone, and I'm talking about the 2014 edition of WWE Summerslam. So we're still continuing on the theme of SummerSlams because, well, still fresh in my mind, and we just came off a retro review of SummerSlam, so we might as well do even more retro reviews of SummerSlam because, well, these SummerSlams that I'm going to be talking about for the rest of the month are kind of important, to say the least, and that one and two that I'm kind of interested in. But this one specifically, I have a lot of nostalgia for. So I'm very excited to go back and revisit the 2014 SummerSlam. But before I go even further and why I'm so nostalgic with this one, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started with this episode. Make sure to follow Very Cold Lasagna on social media, on Twitter/X and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And if you're listening to this on audio, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to Very Cold Lasagna on any streaming platform, make sure to rate and review the show 1 to 5 stars, however you want to rate it, and leave a review as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to smash the like button, smash the subscribe button especially, and then leave a comment down below with your own takes on each and every episode and each and every episode topic that I talk about. With this one in particular, it's the 2014 edition of SummerSlam in this retro review. And as always, share this with your friends, share this with your neighbors, share this with a stranger, share this with your colleagues, whether it's at work or at school, wherever it may be. Spread the good, the bad, the ugly about Very Cold Lasagna. That being said, let's get right into it, shall we? The 2014 edition of WWE SummerSlam, the biggest event of the summer, happened right down in Los Angeles for what was going to be the sixth time. Yes, the sixth time that this happened, the sixth straight one. And well, it was the final one because I guess part of a deal, an exclusivity deal that's been going on for the last 6 years since 2009 for the WWE. But anyway, I digress. This 27th annual SummerSlam took place on August 17th, 2014. So just a little while ago that it's now celebrating its 10th anniversary, taking place in LA at the Staples Center, which is now known as Crypto.com Arena, home of the Los Angeles Lakers, the LA Kings, the LA Sparks, and then at the time, the the Clippers, but no longer 10 years later. But anyway, the Staples Center, as most people refer to as, forget that crappy name that they have now. This was a time where I don't know how you felt about it as a WWE fan. Me personally, when I was a WWE fan during 2014, I was young. I was still relatively young. I was in my last year. I was about to enter my last year of high school, and funny enough, it was still summer vacation, and I had the WWE Network pulled up on my phone. Oh yeah, by the way, the WWE Network was a major thing in 2014, and they were shoving it right up your ass, right in front of your face. All that over promotion of the WWE Network that only costs $9.99. Oh man, the nostalgia is really kicking in, man. You remember how much they shoved in your face? How much the WWE Network cost? It only costs $9.99. But I miss the old WWE Network though. Peacock, not really doing it much for me. I mean, yeah, for some people it's more cost efficient, but I miss the old interface. I miss how you could watch WWE Network. But it is what it is. 10 years later, it's gone now. But anyway, yeah, I was at the end of my last year of high school, and I was actually on summer vacation, like the last couple of weeks of it. And when this happened, I was actually a couple miles down south, a couple miles away from Staples Center in Disneyland. I was in Disneyland in Anaheim, and this was taking place. And I wasn't. I don't think I was aware that SummerSlam was down in LA. Or maybe I was. I don't remember. It's 10 years ago. Forgive me. But obviously, being that age, like I couldn't afford it. No monies. Wasn't working. But yeah, I mean, I went to Disneyland, and obviously I didn't really have too much time to check in on what was going on. So I was just, frantically on my phone. And then I think we were about to head to the park as SummerSlam was about to happen. So yeah, I didn't really get to watch a lot of it during that time. But when I went back to the room, oh man, you knew my ass was watching it. You knew my ass was watching the replay of that. Oh man, good times with the WWE Network, Disneyland. Not so much high school though. But I'd like to know like your memories of how you were in 2014, whether it's as a wrestling fan or just in life in general. But yeah, it was an interesting year. Those early 2010s were an interesting time for me. But anyway, some more interesting things to know about this particular SummerSlam. It was actually the last year that SummerSlam would be in Los Angeles, as the the exclusive rights to SummerSlam, that's a better way to say it, went to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, starting the following year in 2015. And Brooklyn, New York would have it until 2019. And obviously we knew what happened the next year with the pandemic and all that. So, like I said, this SummerSlam would air on the WWE Network. This would be the first one to do that. It also aired on pay-per-view if you wanted to pay a crap ton of money, like $60 and all that. But anyway, this is also be the final WWE pay-per-view to use the old WWE logo. The scratch logos that was first introduced back after Backlash 2002 because of the whole World Wildlife Fund lawsuit where they couldn't use the WWF anymore. So they were going to remove the old scratch logo in favor of the current logo that we have now. I mean, it's still used 10 years later. It's like a more modern, kind of blandish logo, but it is what it is. You eventually see that phased in the next night on Raw, and then a couple days later on SmackDown. So you're eventually starting to see that phase in, not just with the brand, just not on the TV product, but eventually on all the titles and all the clothing and all that good stuff. So yeah, just some little small tidbits about this particular SummerSlam. It was a little bit of change per se with this one. So now that I talked about all the small facts, tidbits with this SummerSlam, let's get into the actual show, because there were some matches that I liked and some matches that I didn't like. Starting with the kickoff match, we had Rob Van Dam, RVD, taking on Cesaro. Obviously, some of you know Cesaro now as Claudio Castagnoli. And a lot of people during this time were really pushing Cesaro to try and be one of those main event players. Yeah. But we all know how that turned out. So with this being a kickoff match, I mean, this obviously served as a match to, get the crowd hyped as they're still filing in to warm them up for the show. It was all right. And it served its purpose. It's kind of like a TV match where they cut to commercial, they play a little ad, and then people, they're slowly getting into it and all that. But the finish saw Rob Van Dam trying to go for the five-star frog splash frequently, but Cesaro kept getting up to hit his big uppercut. And then when Van Dam tried to go for a big crossbody, Cesaro caught him midair for that big uppercut for a near fall. And then he tried to go for the neutralizer, but RVD countered it, knocked him out with one of his spin kicks, and then he hit the five-star frog splash for the win. So, yeah, the match was okay, but I didn't really care for it too much. I mean, considering it's a kickoff match. But I mean, I like RVD. But I mean, I didn't really have much interest in this one. But then now we get the main show started because, well, you got to kick it off somehow with Hulk Hogan, brother. What you got to do, brother, when WWE Network and the LA crowd run wild on you, and you. So Hulk Hogan kicked off the show to hype up Los Angeles and also promote the then new WWE Network, which only costs how much, people? $9.99. So yeah, that $9.99, pal. Pay it up. So yeah, he was basically there to promote the WWE Network even more and try to like get people to pony up for that network subscriptions, pal. You know, kind of like how I said in my retro reviews with Sunday Night Heat. You're looking for the credit cards or the cash for your cable provider, scrambling to call them and like, hey, I gotta order this pay-per-view, man. Like before it starts. It's like, oh shit, it started. I'm fucked. So after the opening video package, we kicked off with our first actual match of the main show, which featured the Intercontinental Champion, The Miz, taking on Dolph Ziggler. Considering where these guys were during that time, they were in actually all right positions during that time, especially Dolph Ziggler. I mean, compared to where they are now, I don't know. But I'd say they're in opposite positions, especially with The Miz. But where they were in 2014, they were feuding with each other for the Intercontinental title, which eventually became a rotational thing as the years went on for both of them. So anyway, with this matchup, it was pretty much set up as, well, The Miz winning the Intercontinental title in a 19-man battle royal, last eliminating Dolph Ziggler. Not sure why the IC title was vacated during this time. I know 2014 was kind of a big year, nostalgic year for me, but I don't remember everything. But anyway, Dolph Ziggler managed to get a match against The Miz because, well, he beat him 2 straight times in 2 straight weeks, both in singles competition and in tag team action. So that gave him a cause for a rematch, for a match at SummerSlam. So for all that I said about, The Miz and Dolph Ziggler and where they were during this time, I gotta admit, this was a good opener. This is a good opener to kick off the main portion of the show, especially when you get to the second half of this match. Because, during this time, The Miz was playing this delusional Hollywood movie star where he just came back from filming, what was it, The Marine 5 or The Marine 4 or whatever. And he's acting all big shot. And he turned heel again. And, well, this is actually some of his best heel work, even though I'm not really necessarily a big fan of The Miz. But at least he was trying with the character. So with this Hollywood gimmick, he's doing all he can to protect his moneymaker, his money-making face. So he didn't want Dolph Ziggler to do anything to it, whether it was getting punched or getting super kicked, but barely any avail to it. So anyway, and then crowds during this time were red hot for Dolph Ziggler. They were really pushing hard for Dolph Ziggler to get another big push because, well, his previous World Heavyweight Championship reign a year prior, it ended kind of unceremoniously, but not to Dolph Ziggler's fault because he did get concussed in that one match with Alberto Del Rio where he lost the title. But yeah, and it also was kind of understandable because Dolph Ziggler can go in the ring. He had solid charisma. I guess it wasn't anything that Vince McMahon was looking for at the time. So again, good match. And I really dug the finishing sequence because when you look at it, Ziggler managed to force a rope break on Miz's figure 4 leg lock, and he seemed to have connected on a Fameasser. But the Miz dodged it at the very last moment. He actually countered it into the skull-crushing finale, but Ziggler kicked out. Miz was like, what the hell? So Miz tried to go for it again, but then Dolph Ziggler got out of it and then hit the zigzag out of nowhere, which is Dolph Ziggler's finisher. And then he won the IC title. So I gotta admit, there's some pretty good stuff from the both of them in this opening match. And they worked really well together in this one. And then that paved the way for some pretty more good, interesting stuff from The Miz. But that's not because of The Miz, it's because of someone else. But we'll get into that in just a second because these two would trade the Intercontinental title for another good month. The Miz would win it the next night or a couple weeks later on Raw. But then Dolph Ziggler, no, he won it at Night of Champions, and then Ziggler would get it back sometime later. But it was during this time where The Miz would really take his Hollywood gimmick to another height, because that's when he brought in Damien Sandow, some perennial jobber, but then he really got himself over with his really good mic work, really good charisma, and really willing to do anything that Vince would give him. So Damien Sandow was brought in by The Miz as his stunt double in what would become one of the few gem stories of 2014. So he was reincarnated as Damien Mizdow, and the Mizdow gimmick was exactly what it was: a stunt double that would bump for The Miz, but more popularly mimic everything that The Miz did, whether it was talk like The Miz, or do the finishing moves like The Miz, or actually get kicked in the nuts like The Miz, for example. That's how funny the Mizdow gimmick was. Like, I highly recommend you guys go on YouTube and see what Damien Mizdow was. For those of you that have never watched it, all my younger folks out there, this was a really good gimmick in 2014, and I understand it had a shelf life for whatnot, but man, this was really that at the time, it was like so fun to see. And honestly, 2014, where some things didn't happen much after WrestleMania, and then going out of SummerSlam. But anyway, I like this opening match. It set the tone for what hopefully would happen for the rest of the night. So going into the second match, we had the Divas champion AJ Lee going up against Paige. Wait a minute, Dylan. Divas champion? I thought it was called the Women's World Champion. I thought it was the WWE Women's Champion. Why are we going backwards all of a sudden? Because that's what it was called during the time. That's what it was called in 2014. Yes, we still had a Divas division back then. I'm sorry for all the people that are like, "Oh, you're being the you-know-what word. You're being the S word." I'm just stating the obvious here. I'm just stating what was given during the time, because this is what I grew up with. This was called the Divas division. They did have a women's championship back in the Ruthless Aggression era, but that was up until 2010 in favor of the Divas championship. The butterfly championship that some of you may have been accustomed to when you were growing up. So don't look at me. Don't look at me saying like, "Where's my Women's World Championship? Where's my WWE Women's Championship, the modern one?" Don't look at me. We're stuck in 2014, all right? We didn't have that. We didn't have that. But in terms of this feud, during this time that I grew up with, this is actually my kind of feud. This is like, these were two women that I was very interested in, and of course for both reasons. Okay, shut up. So this all started the night after WrestleMania. AJ Lee claimed dominance over the Divas division, because keep in mind, AJ Lee has held the Divas championship for, what was it, almost 300 days during that, up to that point. And some of it had to do, she actually did defend the title a lot of the times, but then there are other points where she really didn't, because, well, there was no competition. Kind of similar to a certain Eradicator, huh? A certain Mommy that she faced during her certain title reign last year. But yet, you find no fault in that, huh? Okay, anyway. So anyway, AJ Lee claimed dominance over the Divas division the night at WrestleMania 30. She outlasted nearly every woman in the Vicky Guerrero Invitational. So it's like this multi-woman clusterfuck to retain her title. But then you had the NXT Women's Champion at the time, Paige, who now goes by her name, Saraya, in AEW. She made her main roster debut to congratulate AJ. But AJ's like, "Oh, that's so nice of you, but I'm going to slap you anyway." And I take that as an insult. So she makes an immediate challenge to Paige for the Divas title. And in a surprise of sorts to not just AJ, but to the crowd as well, Paige would actually beat AJ in very short order to end her near 300-day reign. So AJ shook by this, and she's gone for 2 months, while Paige is defending her title, and, well, actually not really giving a whole lot either, to be honest with you. But 2 months go by. The night after Money in the Bank, AJ would return the favor and get back her Divas title from Paige, and would defeat her in a rematch at the Battleground pay-per-view in July. So the next night on Raw, both of them would team up in tag team action, but then after the match, Paige would attack AJ after weeks of pretending to be friends with her. And this was when, after she lost the title, they're all friendly with each other. But then, of course, you find out that Paige was just, kind of using AJ to a degree. And then even afterwards, Paige is being delusional and even acting like AJ. She's being a little obsessive there, pal. So this leads to this match at SummerSlam, and honestly, I was kind of I was excited for this one. Two of my favorite women during that time period in the 2010s, and I can't really complain. But unfortunately, considering that somewhat build that this feud had, and then looking back at it 10 years later, honestly, I'm kind of let down. I'm kind of let down watching this again. Initially, I thought the match was very solid, but yeah, looking at it now, yeah, I'm kind of disappointed by it. Again, I was young, and I'll admit, they're my teen, you know what? But no, they were seriously good. They're seriously good wrestlers too. But yeah, something just didn't click with this match. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the time constraints that was very frequent during the early 2010s with the women, and that started the hashtag months later. But yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like both Paige and AJ's offenses were very limited. I don't know. Something just didn't click with this match. But I did like the finish though. AJ had the Black Widow locked in on Paige, but Paige escaped it, but not in the way that she won the Divas title back in April. But she managed to escape it and then grab AJ for her Rampage DDT to win her second Divas title, and in a nice factoid pointed out by commentary, on her 22nd birthday at the time, which was a pretty cool birthday gift. Nice job there, to reward her for that. So after that, they continued to feud over the title going into the fall. AJ would win back the title in a three-way match that also involved Nikki Bella, and then AJ would beat Paige again to end their feud at the next pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell. It's a little unfortunate what happened to Paige after that, and then during that feud, she didn't really win it. But it is what it is. So the third match up on the card, we had Rusev going up against Jack Swagger in a flag match. This mid-card match started up back in June. Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter, who was Jack Swagger's manager, they had been feuding with Rusev and his manager, Lana. Another one of those, you know what. But anyway, so Rusev and Lana, they had a pro-Russian gimmick, so another anti-American gimmick with anti-American views, even though Rusev is actually from Bulgaria. But interesting case. So Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter had taken offense to Rusev and Lana's pro-Russian views. So yeah, that was a thing during the time. So the two previously faced each other at Battleground in singles competition. Rusev won by countout, and on an episode of Main Event, Swagger won by disqualification. So Rusev at the time was undefeated, never pinned, never submitted. But the DQ loss didn't matter much to Rusev because, well, like I said, he didn't take a clean loss. So he was protected in some way. So later on, Zeb Coulter accepted Lana's challenge of a flag match between Rusev and Swagger at SummerSlam. So for those of you that don't know what a flag match is, because, well, it doesn't happen. It didn't happen a whole lot, and it certainly doesn't happen a whole lot now. So I had to go back and see what the heck is a flag match. So this is one of my few first instances of seeing a flag match, because I don't think I saw this when I was when I saw SummerSlam 2014. But this flag match is basically like capture the flag. You know, both, let's say the Russian flag is in one corner and then the American flag is in the other corner. Both men are fighting to capture the other person's flag, or maybe it's their own flag. But they didn't use that. They didn't use the regular capture the flag rules. Instead, they used the other variation, which is like a standard match. But then the winner would have their country's national anthem played post match. So in other words, it's an anthem match. So the winner gets their country honored. In other words. So yeah, that was basically this match. So when it comes to this match, I thought this was actually pretty good. This was like one of my surprise. This is actually one, if not my only surprise matchup of the night, despite the predictable outcome. Because, you know, at the time, like, Rusev was this like unstoppable force. He was booked very strongly. They were really protecting him well, which was a surprise because, you know, as much as I like Vince McMahon, you know, his booking was getting a little shoddy, and as the years went on. But, you know, despite the predictable outcome, very good. This is a pretty good match. That at a few points, you know, made you think otherwise. Like, this could have gone either way. Like, you know, you thought that Jack Swagger was going to win with the Patriot Lock early on, but then Rusev, no, he countered that thing by going for the accolade, but then Swagger escaped it, and then going for the Patriot Lock. But then Rusev managed to escape that. He managed to push Jack Swagger out and then lock in the accolade. And then the accolade became a hard thing to do for Rusev, by the way, because Rusev's ankle was pretty much targeted before the match even started, because Rusev decided to, you know, I'm going to attack Jack Swagger, try to get an easy advantage. But Jack Swagger was already on the money, thinking that he locked in the ankle lock to pretty much dismember Rusev, to give Rusev the early disadvantage. But then that early advantage was neutralized when Jack Swagger also had hurt ribs from a couple weeks prior. But yeah, that also played a key role. So both men were pretty much fighting hurt. So anyway, yeah, going back to the accolade, Rusev had to modify it. Like, he had to go on one knee and then lock that thing in. So, like I said, ankle lock. Rusev managed to escape that, and he knocked out Swagger with the spin kick, and then he locked in the accolade proper, but then he had to use a lot of adrenaline in his soul. No, Cody Rhodes. But yeah, there's a lot of pain in his face as he was trying to lock in the accolade. He managed to pass out Jack Swagger, and he won the flag match. So post-match, to add more insult to injury, Rusev even kicked Swagger's manager in the face, Zeb Coulter. And then, of course, WWE went full extra with the stipulation. And yeah, they played the Russian national anthem. And, you know, all the memes with that theme song. And they raised the Russian flag up while Coulter and Swagger were knocked out. They're like out cold, and then you have the Russian national anthem with the whole camera, Rusev and Lana, like, you know, right there in front of them. Talk about nasty. Talk about petty. Like, wow, that's just rough. That was some dirty work right there. So yeah, pretty good stuff. Like, I mean, sure, it is one of those one-off things, but I kind of like the heavy hitting, and then the story of, you know, both men going in with a disadvantage, or at least in this case, you know, Jack Swagger with the hurt ribs, evening the playing field with Rusev getting ankle locked, and then he has the bum ankle throughout the whole match, and that raises some doubt of Rusev's undefeated streak. But then he managed to overcome all that and win the match. despite having that bum ankle, like clear pain on his face. That was like it shows that was the toughest test for Rusev in what was it, like his 4th month on the main roster since he got called up to NXT. But yeah, some good work there. And then of course the pettiness of raising the Russian flag and then having the national anthem play while Zeb Coulter and Jack Swagger were like dead in the rights right there. So after this, Jack Swagger was back to catering, and then Rusev continued on with his streak. He continued on his hot train. Next, taking care of Mark Henry. Next, taking care of it's the Big Show at the next 2 pay-per-views. And then a week after getting a victory over the Big Show, he finally got his first main roster title, beating Sheamus on a post-Raw match on that episode in November, and won the United States Championship. So, yeah, that work paid off to a degree several months later, but that's probably another story for another time. But Rusev was on a tear during that period, and it was only getting started from there. So now, let's talk about this matchup. Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose in a Lumberjack match. This is the match I have the most memories with, the most match that I love from this SummerSlam. And when I was getting ready to do this retro review, oh man, the memories like were starting to come in. Like how many times did I watch this one? Like, and how like the build up for it. I don't know. Like I was so nostalgic with it. Like when I was a kid, and I want to go watch this feud every single week because both of these guys were doing such good work with this feud, like really good work. So let's talk about it. For those of you that are unfamiliar with this matchup, this feud, let's go try to no word it. Let's try to like scrimble whatever. What's the term for it? Cram it. Let's just use that word. Cram it into however much we want it, however little we can do it. But anyway, so Seth Rollins, we all know that fateful night of June 2nd, 2014, 10 years ago. In that June, Seth Rollins broke up one of the greatest factions in WWE history in one of the most significant betrayals in pro wrestling. The chair shot heard around the road on the world on Roman Reigns, and he laid out a steel chair assault on both him and Dean Ambrose, and it effectively ended the Shield at the time. So this betrayal hurt Dean Ambrose the most. So Ambrose made it his personal mission to exact revenge on Seth Rollins any way he could. He did not want to see Seth see the light of day. So before there was the Liv Morgan Revenge Tour, there was the Dean Ambrose I Want to Kill You Tour. He wanted to make Seth Rollins' life a living hell. So Seth Rollins, despite all that, he still managed to have success, winning Money in the Bank. And yeah, that was like his claim to fame. And of course, joining the Authority, adapting, evolving, and pretty much carving his own path to success. But despite all that, Ambrose continued to make life hell for him, attacking Seth Rollins wherever he found him and wherever he was and whenever he wanted, even if he had the numbers disadvantage of, like I said, the Authority, with Randy Orton and Kane, and of course Seth Rollins. So weeks go by. Seth and Dean were slated to face each other at Battleground, but Ambrose attacked Seth before the match even started. Triple H ejected him from the arena, so Seth got the victory via forfeit. But Ambrose still managed to attack him anyways because, well, that's what lunatics do. They go after their rivals no matter what. So anyway, 2 weeks before SummerSlam, a proper match between Ambrose and Rollins was announced, and the stipulation would be chosen by whoever won beat the clock matches. So both of them were in beat the clock matches. Ambrose beat Alberto Del Rio at 15 minutes and 42 seconds. And Seth Rollins was given a major advantage. That's because his opponent was a jobber by the name of Heath Slater. So Seth Rollins was just easily taking his time, knowing that, oh, I can beat this dude. But then, of course, Dean Ambrose shows up, with this whole shenanigans, distracting Seth Rollins. And then he messes with this Money in the Bank briefcase. And this messes up Seth Rollins. So he does all these things, like ripping up the contract, putting it with popcorn, and then pouring soda in it, and then putting JBL's hat in it. Yeah, I remember all this because this was like crazy. This was crazy stuff that I dealt with in 2014. So anyway, Seth Rollins loses his Beat the Clock challenge, which meant Dean Ambrose got to make the stipulation. So in order to ensure that there be nowhere to run, nowhere to hide for Seth Rollins, this match would be a lumberjack match. And for some reason at the time, people were saying, why a lumberjack match? Why not just a steel cage match or whatnot? Yeah, I mean, that's a fair argument. Why not just a steel cage match? But we find out later on with this lumberjack match. It's like, okay, maybe a cage is not really necessary. But anyway, I was excited for this match because, these two really hated each other that damn much. And Seth was just trying to weasel his way out of nearly every confrontation from Dean Ambrose unless he was really pushed to because of Ambrose. In contrast to, right now with a certain rivalry where Noseman is booking his women's world champion to run away from a certain eradicator. Why is Rhea Ripley having to chase Liv Morgan? Anyway, watching this match again, 10 years later, like, God, can I just say, this match was so damn good as I remembered it. I know I'm being biased, but some of you may have different memories of it, but this is so entertaining. I was sports entertained again. And I know even the first half of the match, it felt like a standard match, with the Lumberjacks just getting involved, throwing back Seth and Dean whenever they got outside. But even in this standard match environment, you could feel the hatred that they had for each other. They were just like going blow for blow for each other. Ambrose was grabbing Seth by the face, like he was grabbing his nose with that hand claw, because Ambrose was the complete aggressor here, hell bent on revenge. Like I said, he was finally eager to get his hands on Seth. Seth, like I said, he was just more slimy. He was more calculated to try and escape Ambrose wherever he could. Kind of like I said, a certain women's world champion that's getting booked to run away for whoever knows what goddamn reason. So like I said, well, the first half of the match was just pretty standard. The second half of the match is where things got really entertaining, really upped the personal intensity. So you see where Dean Ambrose's personal comeback rally, he really starts to charge up. He really starts to charge up because he suplexed Seth from the apron onto nearly all the Lumberjacks outside. And that's where things got really chaotic. Things fell apart for Control. So the Lumberjacks tried to separate them, but to no avail. Seth and Dean fought their way into the crowd, and that brought out Corporate Kane. Yeah, the big red corporate man had to go out there, ordered the Lumberjacks to go and get them. You're supposed to keep them in the ring. So the Lumberjacks eventually had to go up and get them while Seth and Ambrose were fighting in the crowd, and they were threatening to throw each other off the scaffolding in the crowd. But Seth would escape through the crowd until, well, one of the big spots happened in this match. As the Lumberjacks were bringing both of them back into the ring, Dean managed to escape his portion of the Lumberjacks, and then all the Lumberjacks got into to a big dog pile, and then Dean managed to crowd jump onto everybody. Like, holy hell. That spot when I was little, when I was a little Dylan, that I was cheering for it. I was cheering hell loud for it. And it made me a little bit emotional because it was such a fun spot. Dean just jumping onto everybody, and then he had that crazed look in his eyes, like, oh, he's ready to finish. I was thinking he was going to win this match at that point. That was that's one of my favorite SummerSlam moments. Like just Dean escaping through the crowd. Like the Lumberjacks are just carrying Seth Rollins, and then boom, Dean just jumps onto everybody. That's really good stuff. So anyway, Dean Ambrose would actually almost win this match. He hit the ripcord clothesline off the ropes, and then he actually hit Seth Rollins with the curb stomp. He used it against him, but then unfortunately you have Kane breaking up the pin because during this match was no disqualification. And then Goldust came in the ring and confronted him, but he ended up getting sucker punched by Kane. And then all hell broke loose. The Lumberjacks started fighting each other. Kane got out of there. And then while Dean was distracted dealing with Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, Seth Rollins waited for his moment, bided his time. And then once the coast was clear, he knocked out Dean Ambrose with his Money in the Bank briefcase. And he snuck away with the victory. So remember how I said Seth Rollins was this slimy heel? He was also very calculated. So he's playing up to his smarts. So yeah, that's exactly what he was here. Because for as unhinged and revenge-seeking as Ambrose was, he was just a step behind Seth 10 years ago. And who knows, maybe that's how they should book. This whole storyline right now that's going on with the Terror Twins and the New Judgment Day. You know, being the New Judgment Day need to be more calculating, like Seth Rollins was, and maybe the Terror Twins, who are just as revenge-seeking as Dean Ambrose was 10 years prior. Maybe need to be knocked down a peg by this New Judgment Day that needs to be more calculating. But going back to this match, this brought up so many fun memories. The build-up of Dean always standing on business, obsessing over Seth for revenge, until he tried to get that revenge. It turned into a great Lumberjack match. Even though he didn't get the win, I really loved this. I really loved watching this, and you knew this wasn't over because, well, Seth Rollins snuck away with the victory. So anyway, the feud went on to continue for almost the rest of the year. It was put on pause because Dean Ambrose had to get written off because he was filming a movie. I think it was another 12 rounds ripoff. So he got curb stomped through cinder blocks by Seth the next night on Raw. That was his way of getting written off. And then when he came back at Night of Champions the next month, he exacted payback on Seth Rollins, who was supposed to face Roman Reigns, but then Roman got hurt, had that medical emergency that kept him out for the rest of the year. So for Seth and Dean, their feud would get a payoff match in the main event of that Hell in a Cell pay-per-view in the said match. But while the match was good, the result not so much, as Dean Ambrose lost again to Seth Rollins, thanks to Bray Wyatt, starting their own feud. And I gotta say, it's a real disappointment because, and not the matches, but Ambrose just never gained that one major victory in a match over Seth until like a couple years later when they had revisited their rivalry, but the match itself majorly disappointing. But it's a real disappointing that Ambrose never got that one victory over Seth in this first rivalry because this could have had some good legs until at least of end of 2014. Like, I'm just not sure why Vince never gave it to him. I mean, I get it. They're building up Seth, but it wasn't going to hurt him. You could have had like a trilogy of sorts. But fortunately, Ambrose would get the ultimate payback on Seth Rollins 2 years later when all three members of the Shield held the WWE title in one night. Dean Ambrose having the big cash in on Seth Rollins, and then history went on from there. But yeah, love this match so much. Love revisiting it. And then, like I said, if you want to use kind of a blueprint of sorts of, like how to like build upon it on a revenge hatred filled feud. Maybe this is be something that Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan can use right now for their feud. I mean, yeah, they're spatting with each other on Twitter, but why can't that translate over on TV? Be something like Seth and Dean were in 2014. That's something that they're missing right now in their rivalry. going back to this rivalry, this was fun. This was very fun. That what we got at SummerSlam that year. So going on to the next match, we have Chris Jericho taking on the Eater of Worlds, Bray Wyatt. For this match, Chris Jericho made an unannounced return the night after Money in the Bank, but he was attacked by the Wyatt family. That led to a match at the Battleground pay-per-view where Jericho would beat Bray Wyatt. But the feud was far from over from there because the next night on Raw, Jericho was supposed to have the Wyatts on the highlight reel, but he was attacked backstage by them. So clearly things were far from over from there. So the next week, Triple H made a rematch between the Jericho and Bray Wyatt at SummerSlam, and Jericho was granted opportunities to earn a fair fight over Bray Wyatt throughout the next 2 weeks going into the event. He managed to do such by beating Eric Rowan and Luke Harper on the next episodes of SmackDown and Raw. So that meant Bray Wyatt had to go it alone. And I gotta say, this match was kind of a hard one to follow, to really get into because of the one we just gotten previously with the Lumberjack match. I mean, it did have its moments, especially in the back half, but I just felt like this one just dragged a little too long than it needed to be because Wyatt basically dominated half of this match. And it was kind of slow and plotting to a degree, but it did pick up, like I said, in the later half of the match. So the ending moment saw Jericho locking the walls of Jericho, but Wyatt forced the rope break. And then immediately after, Wyatt did this nasty apron DDT onto Jericho. And it looked like Wyatt was going to win from there. But no, Jericho countered this top rope move that Bray Wyatt was going to do. And then he did a top rope hurricanrana. And he also got a near fall out of it. So Jericho was, I don't know what he was trying to set up, but he saw Bray Wyatt do his famous spider walk, and Jericho got spooked. But then Jericho managed to hit a code breaker much later on, yet Wyatt barely got his foot under the rope, or maybe he was supposed to get his foot under the rope to force a rope break. But nonetheless, Wyatt forced the rope break anyway, and then Wyatt managed to get the win with a sister Abigail to Jericho on the barricade, and then he rolled them back in to hit another sister Abigail as Bray Wyatt won this match. Again, this was a match that was hard to get into because of a really good Lumberjack match that we got prior, but this was okay. This was decent. So afterwards, Jericho went on to feud with Randy Orton, who beat him at Night of Champions. So I guess that was the end of the Jericho run afterwards. Meanwhile, after beating Jericho in a steel cage rematch a couple weeks later on Raw, Wyatt managed to begin the seeds for his solo run. He distanced himself from Eric Rowan and Luke Harper. And then a month later, he returned alone at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, like I said, to attack Dean Ambrose. So, yeah, like I said, this match was okay. So next up, we had Brie Bella taking on Stephanie McMahon. Why was this match happening? Why were you thinking to yourself, why is the boss's daughter taking on one of the Bella twins during this time period? Well, simple stuff. Total Divas. Or maybe it wasn't Total Divas, but in my opinion, it was more material for Total Divas. But anyway, this actually was, for most people during this time, a kind of hot feud, non-title women's feud during 2014, like at least in the summer. So let's talk about why this feud came about. So Stephanie McMahon at the Payback pay-per-view ordered the WWE champion Daniel Bryan to forfeit his title because at the time, like immediately soon after Extreme Rules, soon after WrestleMania, Daniel Bryan was dealing with injuries, and he was not able to defend that title like at all. This was like where the point was where he started dealing with those neck injuries that eventually caused him to retire for the first time. So anyway, Brie Bella, his wife, she was in a situation where either Daniel Bryan would have to forfeit the title or Brie Bella would get fired. But Brie decided to quit, and before she left, she slapped Stephanie in the face. So Daniel Bryan was stripped of the WWE title anyways. But more importantly, Stephanie McMahon would spend the next month and a half putting Brie's sister, Nikki, in unfavorable matches as punishment for Brie's actions, because actions have consequences, pal. So the month goes by. Brie returns as a fan to support her sister, but she gets into a confrontation with Stephanie, again, material for Total Divas, who slapped her back and had her taken away by security. But this ended up hurting Stephanie because, well, she got arrested by the Popo. She got on the no-no list for assault because technically Brie Bella was not contracted by WWE. She was not a WWE superstar, pal. So she put her hands on a fan, which Brie Bella was. So Stephanie got sent to the doghouse. And the next week on Raw, Brie Bella would show up as a fan and agreed to drop all charges on Stephanie, but only if Stephanie rehired her and accepted her challenge for SummerSlam. Stephanie agreed to that, but and then afterwards attacked her. So yeah, that set up this match. And then Brie, in the lead up to that match at SummerSlam, would also get arrested for assaulting Daniel Bryan's physical therapist by the name of Megan Miller. Who, may you ask? Who is Megan Miller? Well, that role would actually be played by one person that is employed by WWE 10 years later, Chelsea Green. Yeah, I don't know. I tried to do that impersonation, but anyway, yeah, this match, in my opinion, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Maybe it's a little overrated, but I understand the significance of it because, well, it was an important match of is the important match of the time where, you know, you actually have a grounded story with the women where, even with the Divas title in contrast, yeah, you had a story, but not a lot of time with it. But with this match, there was somewhat of a story and you got some time with it. But the quality of it, in quality was not that great. And yeah, for the most part, people were talking more about the ending. And in that 10 years later, it ages kind of badly. And I'm not sure if my hearing was off, but I feel like people were actually chanting for Stephanie more than Brie. I don't know. Maybe that was just me because Stephanie was mocking Brie Bella at one point during this match. I feel like they were in support of Stephanie. I don't know. That's just me. But anyway, yeah, this match is not good, remember? But I will say, for someone like Stephanie that hasn't competed 10 years prior, because that was her first match since 10 years, like 2004 or 2003. But she looked pretty. She looked pretty good. She shook off the ring rust a few minutes after the match had started, and she looked very solid, even though her offense was pretty limited. But she controlled the pace really well. Sold for Brie very nicely. So I'll give Stephanie credit here. So the closing moments of this match, like I said, was the thing that most people remembered. Triple H came down to try and distract Brie, but her sister Nikki immediately followed suit. Brie had Stephanie locked in the LaBelle lock, or the yes lock as they like to call it during that time. But Triple H dragged the referee out to prevent a tap out. And I gotta say, they telegraphed the crap out of the rest of this match, because like you could see like Nikki Bella just standing there like staring at Triple H like, oh, what do I do next? And then you had Brie standing there for a long ass time, like, oh, do I dive on him? Do I just kick him in the face? And then they didn't angle Triple H like with the camera. It's like he's just probably standing here. It's like thinking, do something. Ugh. Like, yeah, it is kind of like do something like to not make this so obvious. So anyway, they set that up way too long. So Brie Bella did take out Triple H with a running drop kick. And then Nikki Bella ran on the opposite side of the ring to set up the next spot as the Bella Twins cornered Stephanie. They sandwiched her, and it seemed like the Twin Magic was going to strike down on the Queen. The Queen's due justice was finally going to come. But then in the spot that we all remember from this SummerSlam, Nikki instead knocked out her sister for dead, as Stephanie won the match with the pedigree. Again, not a good match, but the end result was what had people talking. It was kind of a shock at the time for me. But again, this was more material for Total Divas at the time, so it was what it was. It was Total Divas was like a kind of a hot commodity for the company back then, so I can understand why they did this. But unfortunately, oh my God, the follow-up feud, yikes, that was really bad, especially to many people because while Nikki, she did give a valid explanation to betraying Brie. You know, she felt like Brie had quit the team. You know, not just her and Nikki. You know, the Bella Twins. She quit WWE. So Nikki actually had some valid reasoning. Unfortunately, the acting by both was so bad. Like, it was really bad. Like, Brie's crying was bad. Nikki's, like, I don't know, screaming or yelling. I don't know. Mic work, not great. So that first segment on the next night on Raw, I think it was like a segment with, I think one of the guest stars. Yeah, really bad. Oh, God. So for the next several weeks, they did fight each other in interviews, in ring, and backstage segments. And that all culminated in a match at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Nikki won that match. And then Brie had to become her personal assistant for like a month. But man, the story had gotten like really bad by that point. And I guess Vince decided to drop the whole thing because, well, by the time you get to Survivor Series, Brie ended up helping Nikki win the Divas Championship from AJ Lee. So, oof. You want to talk about how bad that story was? Yeah. Just look at how we turned from, oh, Nikki hates Brie to, well, they like each other again by Survivor Series. Rough. Just rough stuff. So then we get into the second to final match of the night, and it was Roman Reigns taking on Randy Orton. Before Roman Reigns was the tribal chief, Roman Reigns was basically heading into his first major singles match for SummerSlam. And yeah, this was like his first major test as a single star, breaking away from the Shield, not concerned about Seth and Dean, whatever they were doing. No, WWE and Vince were really trying to make Roman Reigns the next big thing, the next franchise player of the WWE to try and succeed John Cena. So anyway, for this match itself, why was it a thing? Well, Roman Reigns would get into some beef with Randy Orton during Triple H's WWE title announcement the night after Battleground. So Randy Orton decided to retaliate the next week, RKOing Roman Reigns through the announce table and essentially blaming him for taking away his chance at the title. So that assault led to this match here. So this match, not anything special because, well, it's basically a standard slow-paced match, rest holds. It is basically designed to, try and test Roman Reigns. See if he could be that guy to pass that major hurdle of a one-on-one pay-per-view match. And for the most part, he did, because Randy Orton, he's like that very good choice to be his dance partner for it. Because, like I said, he controlled the pace, as Roman's moveset was very limited back then compared to now. And he set up the drama for Roman to eventually come back and win this match. Like with Randy Orton, he did a lot of rest holds, and then he just beat up on Roman at a kind of like a methodical pace like he usually does. But yeah, Randy Orton, he's just buying his time until he could strike with an RKO. Speaking of, I did like the sequence of this match very late. So late in the match, you had Roman hit the Superman punch on Orton, and then when Roman was going to hit the spear, Orton countered it with a great power slam reversal. Like Roman was running towards him, and then Orton just suddenly catches him and snaps him into the power slam. That was like a very good counter and a very close near fall. And then Roman was about to go again for another spear. Like they were just running towards the ropes, and then Roman was going to spear him, but then Orton catches him and pops him up in the air for an RKO. That was a very, very good counter. And then Roman kicks out, and then Orton's just frustrated as all hell. He's like, what the hell do I have to do to beat this guy? So Orton's desperate. Orton needs to find a way to beat Roman Reigns, and then he goes for plan P. P for punt. So the Viper looked to kick Roman's head off, end his career very early, but Roman intercepted it, and then he speared Randy Orton for his first major singles pay-per-view 10 years ago. So, yeah, like I said, I mean, this match was nothing to write home about, but this is more importantly about whether Roman Reigns could pass that test of a one-on-one singles match for the first time in his career. And I gotta say, he did fine. He did fine for how he was at the time in a major spot, but certainly more tests were to come as Vince McMahon was, again, trying to push him as his next face of WWE. But unfortunately, his push to the top was seriously halted by a serious hernia injury the day before he was supposed to face Seth Rollins at Night of Champions, which, yeah, it was kind of painful, to be honest with you, because when you're at a time where you're kind of like dealing with some of these injuries, Brock Lesnar was, a certain thing during that time. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But when you have one of your rising stars coming up in the WWE and he gets hurt like that, you're trying to push. Yeah, not good. So when he came back in December, oh boy, did things get messy from there as we slowly crept up on the infamous January night in 2015 in Philadelphia as, that reality, that stone cold reality started to slowly creep up for Vince McMahon, Roman Reigns, and the WWE in that Philadelphia night at the end of January of 2015. But for now, I mean, this match was all right. Roman passed his first major singles test, and you just had to hope at the time that things were only going to go up from there. But, we knew what would happen several months later. Now we get on to the main event. The WWE World Heavyweight Champion, John Cena, taking on Brock Lesnar in what was dubbed as the biggest fight of the summer, even though they fought each other numerous times. I don't know why. But anyway, the setup was pretty simple for this one. John Cena had won the vacated WWE title back in Money in the Bank in June and went on to retain the title in a fatal four-way at the next month's pay-per-view Battleground. So Triple H decided to take matters into his own hands. He had chosen John Cena's opponent for SummerSlam, and that happened to be the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar had been on a near year-long tear against many people, and he was going to make Cena puke. He was going to make Cena bleed. He was going to leave Cena in a pile of his own blood and puke, and he was going to lead him battered at SummerSlam, as he was going to be on his way to the WWE World Heavyweight title. So, setup was pretty simple for this one. And let's just say we all remember how this one famously went down. F5, 30 seconds in, 16 German suplexes, and one last F5, 16 minutes later. Brock Lesnar absolutely demolished John Cena in one of the most unexpectedly lopsided title matches at the time. I mean, look at, what else do you want me to say about this match? There literally isn't anything else for me to say. That's pretty much the whole match. That's literally all it was 10 years ago. Because look back at the vignette and the promos for this match. Could you say that it was telegraphed? Sure. But not like that. Because look at the vignettes. Lesnar backed up everything he said going to the match. Destroy John Cena, make him vomit, leave him broken. While John Cena talked about how Lesnar needed to beat every last fiber of his being. And oh boy, Lesnar certainly meant it, because again, that's exactly what Lesnar did. So, damn. Nobody expected Brock Lesnar to just absolutely be booked to dismantle John Cena like that. Especially, during a time where, this last several years, John Cena was being booked like Superman, being booked like Super Cena, as the memesters like to call it. But this title victory capped off a successful year plus for Brock Lesnar, which started back at the previous year's SummerSlam, from beating CM Punk to destroying Mark Henry in the Big Show, and then of course ending the 21-0 streak of The Undertaker at WrestleMania. So the way that Brock Lesnar beat up John Cena was just the cherry on top. It was also the birth of Suplex City. I know cameras caught Brock Lesnar saying Suplex City at WrestleMania several months later, but this was the actual birth of Suplex City. Brock Lesnar suplexing John Cena 16 times, but yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. It's like a crazy outcome and like the road to get to that outcome. Because when I saw this, like while it was in Disneyland, like the result for that matter, I mean, I was stunned at first, like the actual result, but when I went to the hotel to actually watch this, like how it unfolded, I was like, damn. I was like, what the hell? It's like this how it went down. Like John Cena got his ass whooped by Lesnar. It's like fuck. Like goddamn. So yeah, this match, it was crazy. I mean, in terms of like just how it went down, and I think I find it pretty interesting. I mean, I don't know if I can say that it's good or if it's bad. It's just crazy. It's just crazy how it was booked like that 10 years ago. And yeah, I think it did good for both of them. It really did good for both of them, because it was the end of, Super Cena. It was technically the end of Super Cena, and then it started this unstoppable force that was Brock Lesnar. It started his unstoppable run. But for as much as Lesnar's victory was cool, it unfortunately began a string of the WWE title being on and off television, which started becoming a theme for Lesnar's subsequent title runs down the line. John Cena would beat Brock Lesnar in a rematch at the next month's pay-per-view Night of Champions, but it was by DQ because Seth Rollins got involved. But Lesnar, he would take a couple months off after that. He would show up for a Royal Rumble time, and then he held the title until WrestleMania 31, where he lost it to Seth Rollins because of that cash-in. But technically, he never was pinned by him, by the way. But yeah, just when you think about it, again, this result was crazy. Like how it went down was insane. But oh my God, I just had a little side note. I just had a little, what is it? A Tiffany epiphany. Tiffany Stratton's epiphany. I always think about this when it comes to this match at SummerSlam. The biggest what if I often ask about myself about this match is, what if Daniel Bryan never got hurt back in May? What if he's still the WWE champion by this SummerSlam, and he was in the spot that John Cena was in, and he was booked to face Brock Lesnar, and he was booked to take that beating, to go to Suplex City and get absolutely mauled by Lesnar. Could you imagine how pissed off? Could you imagine how angry? Could you imagine like, oh, I'm gonna cancel my WWE network? The internet wrestling community, how the YouTube wrestling community, how all of the internet would have been pissed as fuck at Vince McMahon if Bryan was the one that got squashed, like completely buried by Brock Lesnar. Had Daniel Bryan been in John Cena's spot, like holy hell, like it would have been a war zone. It would have been like a shitstorm. Like, you want to talk about big what ifs? Yeah, this is certainly one of them. What if Daniel Bryan was the WWE champion heading into this SummerSlam against Brock Lesnar? Oh my God, the Yes Movement meets the Beast. Oh yeah, certainly it was certainly gonna be something, and something not good for that Yes Movement had that happen. So overall, with this SummerSlam, I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed rewatching this. Good memories coming back together. Sure, it had its down moments that I probably don't want to revisit from my high school days, but there were some good moments and matches that paved the way for WWE going to the fall, for better or for worse. If there was one match that you should go back and rewatch, it's not the WWE title match. It's actually the Lumberjack match between Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. It's a blood feud that was built up really well, and it paid off in such a chaotically good way. You look back at how the feud progressed Since Seth Rollins turned on the Shield, Dean Ambrose constantly on his ass every waking moment. It was such a really nice feud that was built up for SummerSlam. And sure, Dean Ambrose wasn't booked to win, but it started the next couple months for their rivalry, which of course, unfortunately, Dean Ambrose didn't win. But who would have thought that that kind of revenge, hatred for one another would be very interesting to see 10 years ago. And it's just unfortunate that for as much as I like the Liv, Dom, and Rhea stuff, the whole Judgment Day overall stuff, it doesn't have that time. At least right now, I wish it had this kind of like personal hatred that Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins did in 2014. It's like, why can't Triple H book that kind of thing? I don't know. I don't want to get a whole like side tangent of like how Dom has become the central focus of it, but it has to have an even balance. And I think Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins is a good example of pure hatred for one another, especially from Dean Ambrose's side. But yeah, overall, I really like this pay-per-view. I highly recommend you go back and watch this. There's a lot of stuff to like, and a couple parts, yeah, I didn't like, but really good pay-per-view from 10 years ago. But let me know what you guys thought about SummerSlam 2014. I'd like to know your guys' memories. Did you guys watch it when it first aired in 2014? Or was this your first time watching this pay-per-view, or reliving it, or just living in it for the first time? I'd like to know your thoughts on SummerSlam 2014 in the comments below on YouTube or on social media. Send me a message at VeryColdLasagna on X and Instagram at VeryColdLasagna. But anyway, that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I am your host, DylanLasagna, and this is episode number 213 of this icy yet spicy sports podcast for all the filthy casual takes on, well, other than sports. And until the next one, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with those filthy casual takes. And until the next one, peace out.